What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team.
We are live.
We are live.
A little burp out. What's up, bro?
I will hang my head low and high at the same time. Admit defeat in terms of not getting here on time. I very much apologize. For anybody who's interested, just see the message in the chat, and you will know why. So,
dude, apparently a lot of lover boys in the chat today. Before you came, this thing was like a party, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was setting all kinds of. I was down here just going. Very. I don't know what it was last night, but something was in the air. Cupid's arrow was flying.
Apparently, dude. Yeah.
Well, dude, how the heck are you, dude? Coming off the big B day.
Yeah. Dude, birthday was awesome. Like, super blessed. I'm not, like, I barely use social media, so it was honestly cool for me to receive, X amount of text messages. Like, I don't know, it just felt like super loved. It was cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, thank you guys for the happy birthday wishes. Yeah, man, it was awesome. And then Matt and his baby girl sent me a happy birthday message that was like the centerpiece of birthday message. It was just so adorable.
It was funny getting her to say happy birthday. Eventually, she's really funny.
So good. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. Ray, to answer your question, 36.
Yes,
36
sir.
And ready to go. Dude, like, that's actually an interesting topic, man. Like, I don't know about you, but like I was borderline expecting to be, like, when I was growing up, like 36 would have been a number. It's like, oh, like, he's almost dead, like, sort of a thing. Like, he's like 15 years away, like that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I literally, like, from a physical standpoint, mobility, mental, like everything, I feel younger than literally 10 years ago. And I'm not saying I'm saying like I don't think I'm an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I'm telling you, I agree. I've welcomed every year that comes. I'm always like, nice. I enjoy it. People are like, dude, I wish I could go back to. I mean, I had fun in college, but it's like, they're like, go do that again. I'd be like, I'm good. I'm cool.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like, I'm good on that. But yeah, man, it's yeah, I feel like that's one of those things, man. If you do the stuff that if you do stuff that kind of helps you or move in a holistic way, I do think things get better with time. Now, when you're 80, I'm sure that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, dude, the average lifespan, I think in the 1800s at some point was like 40.
Yeah, I believe it, bro.
40.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, now we have another, basically now you hit your 40s and more or less it's like, all right, that's half of my life. You're like, what the it's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, because I do think there's an element of talking about urgency, right? And like, oh, you're not getting any younger. But then also the message, I think, should really, probably to a lot of us men, should be like, dude, you don't realize how much time you have.
Yeah.
You actually have a boatload of time. So it's like, use those mental models differently. Like, if you're noticing that you're just not moving fast enough, then create an urgency mental model. But I think for a lot of men, like, especially as we do different projects or try different careers and so on, it's like, you have so much time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That you could literally go and spend 2 years trying something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. like in terms of negative impact, does not matter. There's nothing outside of dying, right? So like, don't do stuff that will kill you. Outside of that, it doesn't, like, you get it back. So like, go and take the risk.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, dude, that's been nice. That's been something I'm trying to, that's one of my, like, I would say foundational values, I would say, of like trying to keep my body operational well into my, twilight years. So it's like, I think that's a really important one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kaizen is saying that we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. Yeah, and overestimate what we can do in 1 year. Yeah, I think, Tim Ferriss, there's a bunch of people who say it, definitely. But that's so true. You have a tendency to say, like, oh, I've got these goals, I want to get them done in a month. So you overestimate on what you can accomplish. But then it's like you completely underestimate what you can accomplish in a decade, like 1 year versus a decade, 1 month versus 1 year, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So yeah, zooming out for a time horizon. And I can definitely tell you, the industry I work in, like investing, if you can master that, of like long scope time horizons and patience within that long scope time horizon, like, and as sticking to fundamental investments, you crush it over time. Like, you just crush it over time.
Yeah, I was reading a book. I talked about it on Matt and Shane's. I really like it. I think, Wes, I think you'd like it too. The author's George Friedman, and he does like a 100-year prediction. Without getting fully into it, the thing that kind of I thought was cool is how this guy's thinking in like 100-year kind of span. And, there's so much talk like, oh, America is done, it's over. This guy's basically like, no, it's like he's like the cycles America goes through are so they're like actually really predictable, and America's in a unique position where we can have our economy can get shocked really hard and not completely break. So he's like, people get into all this like, yeah, it's time now to invest in gold and send my silver so I can move to the Bahamas or whatever. This guy's basically going like, nah, man, like you're good for about 100 years at least. So it's like, obviously do smart things and keep your head on a swivel. But it's kind of a nice reassuring message to hear. And it's like, only time will really tell. But the way he kind of presents it is like, dude, you don't, like when people say like, well, what if the dollar collapses? He's like, dude, you got bigger fish. At that point, like your stock portfolio is not even going to be a thing. He's like, that's a global catastrophe. That's like not a, so.
100%. Dude, I think that model could probably be used out of finance, but I experience it all the time. Like, there's this saying that we have in the office that we got from this one author. It's like, we don't do Armageddon here.
Yeah.
Because you cannot plan for Armageddon. And I think oftentimes, not only in finance, we do that in real life. It's like, oh my God, well, the worst case scenario is, it might technically be the worst case scenario, but it's like the worst case scenario is really like you lose your car or something like that, versus the Armageddon scenario is everyone dies. It's definitely an interesting case study. How can you play out practical worst case scenario, not game is completely over forever worst case scenario, because that's just not helpful. You can't plan for that. Yeah,
no, it was pretty cool. It definitely helped in my thinking with things where it's like not getting caught up in all the weekly hype. It's every single week. It's like, what was the big news 3 weeks ago? Fucking, I don't know. I have no idea. I check it all the time, but I couldn't tell you. But the way this guy was talking was basically, I think he said every 30 years there's like a big institutional shift in America, and then every 50 years there's a big economic thing, and he lined it up like World War I, World War II, and then different economic dips, and he's like they're pretty consistent and they're pretty predictable almost, but he's like, within other countries, it'll shatter their economy. Here it'll just stress it for a little bit, and then it just comes right back, and typically comes back bigger, better. So
exactly. There's a great book called Rational Optimist that talks a lot about this kind of stuff.
Yep. Just hang on till 2030. That's the message. Just hang on till 2030. You'll be
all right. Sweet. Sweet.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I think there's a great kind of message in this, which is if you can play a game, especially with your career, I think this is the biggest component. If you can play a game in your career where deadlines are more negotiable, like deadlines are phenomenal because they force you to get shit done. But at the same time, it also kind of limits a certain amount of progress. So if you can play at a career where you have infinite time until Armageddon happens, man, speaking from experience, you become untouchable. You literally, nobody can compete with you, because most careers, if not all of them, are literally on a 5-year cycle maximum. Very few people stick with their career for 6 years.
That makes sense.
So imagine being a perpetual varsity senior basketball player, and you're always competing with incoming freshmen because they drop off by sophomore year. It's like that. and you're allowed to play varsity on repeat. At a certain point, nobody can compete with you. And, and the cool thing is, the only other quote competitors will be guys who are psychotic like you, who've been in the game for so long. But it's such rarefied air that there's so much distance. You know, he's in the next city over. He's not even in the next plot of land. You know, and it is so liberating, dude. Like, so unbelievably liberating. And then you get the benefit of all of the legacy compounding value from your initial projects. Like, I worked on projects 10 years ago that are still paying dividends in the office now. So it's like, then the next project, then the next project, then the next project, and so on. And then eventually it's like, if somebody wants to come in and compete with us in the space, like, great, because we have a 15-year head start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Someone wants to come and try to set up shop. It's like, yeah, good luck. But yeah, there is something to be said for that, man. I struggled with that when I was younger, of like sticking with a thing, like picking a thing, sticking with it, and like just that's what your day is. That's what your kind of life consists of. And yeah, that's tough. It's a daunting thing, especially for younger people, because it's like, this is all there is. It's like, well, no, it's going to suck for a little bit because you're young and, you know, you're not exactly on top of the game right now. But like, that is the, you know, that's like the paying your dues thing. It's like, yeah, you got to go through a thing that kind of sucks and not bail. And then eventually, like, I was just talking to my one friend today, and, you know, he was someone I grew up with, and it was actually just kind of, it's funny because, like, you know, same thing, just worked in an office, blah, blah, blah. Now he's like, I was like, how you doing? He's like, I'm just stressed right now. I was like, something with work. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm like the VP of marketing for some company now. It's just, you know, it's just, when we were younger, he was just in an office, like, fucking it off, just sitting in a cubicle, and it's like, you know, and he's stuck with it. He's stuck with that thing, and it's like, you know, now he's doing pretty well.
Hell yeah.
He's very stressed about it, but, you know. But he's doing really well, so it's like,
well, there's a message even in that, man. Like, you know, you don't hang your ladder on a wall that you don't want to get to the top to, right? Like, I don't know that that's your friend. I have no idea, but you and I have a mutual friend who we went to school with, and this is him. Like, literally, still to this day, Matt and I had a conversation with him probably 4 years at this point, 3-4 years. He literally vomits on a weekly basis because he's so stressed out about his job. Yeah, and now he feels like he's thrown so much good money after bad, which then becomes bad money, and it's the same cycle. He now feels like that's so much to the point where he now has 2 children, and he still can't break free.
So when you say good, when you throw so much good money at the bad, what does that mean?
Oh, I mean, basically it's what do they call it? Sunk cost. Like, human beings have a very difficult time with sunk cost. It's like, oh, I've been in a relationship for 6 months, so I can't end it now. You know, like I've come this far. I paid this much amount of it. So
that makes sense. Yeah, the friend I'm thinking of, he's just chilling. He's kind of just like, you know, the way he describes it, he's like, yeah, it'll pass. It's just right now it's a pain in the ass, which is important, I think. But yeah, no, dude, that's to answer Ray's question. How do you know when to bail on something? Well, I think that's one of the most primary indicators, when it's like genuinely affecting you physically. Then you have to make the decision. Like, is this thing worth kind of damaging myself physically over? And some things you might be like, you know what? Yeah, I think I have to go through this and kind of take a little shrapnel. But for me, I think that's a good indicator, being like, I feel shitty, right? It's not like I don't like this or I'm bored. Like, my body feels fucked up. That's how I felt in an office. I felt like sick. When I would sit in an office all day, I would feel physically ill. And I'm like, I can't do this. You know, stand up, I get stressed, and, you know, there's this and that, but it's like, I don't feel horrible. The nighttime schedule I kind of dislike, but I've kind of, like, you know, disciplined my sleeping, so I'm not out just kind of fucking around. But it's, again, that's something I'm like, I can deal. You know, it's not, out of all my options, it's like, I'll take it.
Right. Yeah, and I think to Ray's question, I don't think it's as hard as people make it. I honestly think they already know. They're just scared to say it or to change. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like everybody who I've talked to who poses that question, and when I've posed the question to myself, I would say usually I know the answer myself, and I can see that they know the answer as well. It's like, oh, I'm going to bail, and it's like, okay, you're bailing because there's a really difficult project right now, and like, it's just easier because Matt, you called it a term. I think it's called cushioning. Mm-hmm. Like, I see people cushioning in their career all the time. Like, They go into their career. They're always have half foot one foot half out the door.
Mm-hmm.
This is the consequence of being irresponsible. The night before, I stumbled over. So they always have 1 foot out the door, and then they're on LinkedIn courting other companies constantly, and other companies are constantly courting them. So at the sign of first difficulty, they have 3 other options, and then they jump ship to this other thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like rinse and repeat. When it's like in reality, if I were to sit them down, really say like, why do you want to leave? Why do you want to leave? Why do you want to leave? It would get to a nucleus of like, well, this is just really hard, and it's easier to go over here right now.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like one of the main things too is like, if you've actually confronted what's hard about it, you gave it your all, and you're saying like, there's times you can go and you go, this is a sinking ship, or it's like, this is just like a blast furnace they're shoving people into. So it's like, that's where like kind of like just looking at the lay of the land comes from. So didn't you say one time you worked at a company and they like the workload was like, just to prove a point you actually did, like they would give you like you did 60% of your assignments, 80%, and just to prove a point of how ridiculous it was, you did 100%, and you ended up having to sleep in the office and do all this other stuff, just to prove how it was just they were putting you guys through a meat grinder.
Oh yeah, totally. And then that's where I think a mental model of, using a really close friend or using someone like Matt or myself as just to say like, what would Wes say in this situation? Like finding an analytical person who cares about like your well-being, what would he say? And particularly a person who's not afraid to tell you. Like one of the things that I like value so much about your friendship, Matt, with me is like, you will tell me, like you told me quite recently, like, hey man, like you might want to look at this because it seems like it's a pattern. I've known you for this amount of time and it seems like there's a pattern, just a heads up. And you don't say it in like a mean way or anything like that. You say it in just the right way. So I think having either access to talk to somebody like that, or if you just pretend that you had a conversation with them in your head.
Yeah, no, I agree, man.
Sounds.
No, I that's the least of my problems going on in my head. But but yeah, so I agree, man. I think it's one of those things where it's like, because it's hard, and it's like, I feel like I didn't get that kind of clarity in terms of like, what am I doing? Like there's things now, when I was younger, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to like with writing. But what if some book doesn't get bought? What if, and I was constantly, you were saying, trying to cushion everything with like that scenario where I always win somehow. And like the thing I had to do eventually was just go like, well, I'm going to do this thing. And then if I genuinely might end up just like in the basement of an apartment complex getting picked up by like my brother's kids into my 80s. When my mom had an uncle who was just like basement of an apartment complex, sat there all day, and every now and again we would just go pick him up. And that was always my thing. Like, as I got older, I'm like, I see how that happens. I'm like, that's a very real possibility for me. Yeah. And I had to just accept it and go, well, that might be the case, but I have to give myself fully to this thing. I can't keep bouncing around. Right. And that's like,
Oh yeah.
As you get older, that gets easier to do, I feel like. I don't know why. But I could be wrong. But for me, it was. It's eventually like, you know what? Fuck this. Because you kind of get a lot of your illusions shattered with time, and you're like, all right, I actually know where I'm at here. So.
Yeah, and dude, Gunther put a really great message in there. He said that he's dealing with this now. Good buddy has opinions on stuff, but presents it to him in a nasty way with shade and is aggressive. Jordan Peterson kind of riffs on this. He says, find friends that are authentically happy for you in your victories and who don't try to one-up you. And Gunther, I kind of put this in a similar bucket. It's like, I don't know, I would just think it would turn me off if Matt came to me and was like aggressive with me for some decision I was making. It would almost make me seem it's like he's either too, like it would seem weird. Like there's some sort of like ulterior motive. Maybe it's he's being aggressive with me to put me down so it makes himself feel good, or he's too overly invested in me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, to like a weird dependent way, like, like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And especially for guys, dude, I think we just have such a lucky break where it's like, I can completely comment on that situation, legitimately wanting the best for him, but knowing that he's confident enough so I don't have to scream at him. It's like this. I think, and I do think, I'm just guessing, it feels like that's a unique thing of men. I don't know if I haven't seen the pattern play out as well with women, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I would agree.
Have you noticed that pattern?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like you kind of know when things aren't right. You feel it. When someone's like present you with something, you just go, "What the fuck's this guy's?" There's just no reason. Right. And it's always like, where's the extra animosity coming from? It's like, I'd be curious just to be like, dude, like, what is this situation painting you to that level where you need to like you were saying, kind of like scream or whatever? It's like, it's, who knows? It's very tough, man, because it's like, some people get off on that of being like, I gotta tell. Like I know people who do that. They would just sit there and fucking everything. Someone I knew when I was younger would just be like, yo, you know what you got to do? And you would just sit there and be like, what do I... And I could just sit there and I could give you a 4-hour dissertation on what's up with you, and it's like, yeah, that's a common thing that happens. But, some people get addicted to that drama. Some people get addicted to that whole thing, and that'll be the thing in their head, and, it just keeps you from having to think about yourself. But I don't know, man. It could be well-intentioned. I would just say, like, dude, like I'd be curious to see, like, exactly how this person's doing it, but, when something doesn't feel right, and it's like, yeah, man, stop doing this.
Yeah, I think those people are playing a perpetual game with monopoly money. It is. These are the people who scream at the TV and who talk on Monday about how Tom Brady should have thrown that extra pass and what an idiot he is for not doing it or something like that.
Yeah.
When you're not playing the game to the fullest degree, you will tend to critique other people playing real games. And you are under the false illusion that playing out the avatars and guessing of like what the person should have done, you are delusional in thinking that that's the real game. It's the same thing as the man in the arena quote. I am literally not interested at all in talking to pure philosophers. Like zero interest, zero interest. The only time I will take critique is from people actually playing on the field.
Yeah, man.
I have a funny feeling. Gunther, no disrespect towards your buddy, I do have a funny feeling that maybe your buddy is not fully playing on the field. I could be wrong.
True. Yeah, man. I mean, again, that's it is one of those things that it's like I always just lump it into like a cigarette break conversation circle where it's just like complaints, gossip. Yeah. Like, you know what you need to do. It's like, yeah. But I would say though, to Gunt, it's like, it's hard to do, and I'm telling you, I found it unsettling. But once you start kind of coming into your own, you can literally start complaining. Wes, you kind of mentioned this a little bit. Like, you can completely discount or disregard what people tell you sometimes, and it's tough to do because it's slippery slope. Because you could do it to the point where you become delusional. But finding that balance where you can just go like, nope, I'll hear you, but nope, not doing that. I'm not doing that. And you can nicely be like, okay, thanks, man. But completely discount like the information because it's like, I just don't like the way that person operates, and I just, if they say something that strikes me as like, wow, I never thought of that, but if it's none of the information is doing that for you, it's like, yeah, man, just shut up.
Kaizen had a perfect response. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, exactly. It's just like, okay, man, it's drama, dude. People get addicted to it. They get addicted to it, and it's just like. And there's a sinister thing about it where as much as they'll complain about, oh, this is bad and not but because of this and this person fucked me over, there's this one author that talks about it like they're just juicing. They get a little secret juice out of the situation where they can just be victimized and, let themselves off the hook and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Gunther, we say this all from a loving spot. Like, sure, the reason that your buddy's with him is because he's awesome, and this one particular thing, he just seems a little off. But one of the things I love about just a group of dudes is like, we will tend to huddle and attack the person who's just being a douchebag. It's like, dude, shut up.
Yeah,
it's like, just shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helps keep everybody regulated, in my opinion. So maybe this dude just needs a little like man circle telling him like, dude, stop your bullshit.
Yeah. Or just copy and paste the text, send it back to him with a question mark. Like, what is this? Stop it. Please stop. Please stop. But I'm telling you can get snared up in that stuff, man. And you can just, it's... Troy had a thing he said about... I don't know. I'm guessing this is what he's talking about. I'm not trying to, like, trash this dude. I'm just talking more about the archetype of this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But it says the former sounds like people who like to win, quotes, socially, or win, quote unquote, socially. And it's like, yeah, man, there's when you go to parties, there's a whole subcurrent of people being like, what's that? He thinks he's better than me. That whole thing. Oh, you think you're better than me? The way they comparing and all that stuff. And it's like, people get caught up in that, man. And it's like, I don't think that's a fun game to play. There was a book I just read. I don't think I talked about this on here, but the one guy dedicates his entire life to kind of appeasing the aristocratic class, while the other guy goes off to try to like find some form of like spiritual truth. And then at the end, just to give you a spoiler, I don't think people will read this. The dude who has been trying to appease the elite class, just like, you know, getting in with certain circles and all that stuff, he dies, and he like they confront like how pointless the whole existence was, because he doesn't get invited to this party when he's really sick. And he's just torn up about it. He's like, I did all this for them, and they don't care about me. And it's pretty brutal the way they summed it up. They called him like a Don Quixote of an entirely pointless existence. It was just like, Jesus Christ.
Imagine that at your deathbed, bro.
Yeah, so it's like, again, it was cool to read, because it was like, you know, you're following, like, man, this guy's getting into all this, and then he dies, and you're like, oh yeah, it's fucking, who cares? So it's like, you know, and at the end of it, it wasn't just them. It was like he was, you know, just playing whatever game that was of just comparison, who's who at this and who's at this thing, and, you know, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, in the end, that doesn't really help.
Yeah.
Rather than just genuinely creating value, and like you were saying, Wes, being excited for your boys and all your friends. Like, I'm genuinely excited for anything they're doing, because I know I'm doing everything I can, and, you know, I have faith in my situation and all that other stuff. And it's like, as soon as you kind of give up the reins or kind of fall back, it's like you see people not doing that, you start being like, what the fuck's their problem? They're fucking better than me. It's like, that's all bullshit.
Dude, yeah, I think coming from a place of being whole, so you don't, and that doesn't mean you have to be perfect in every area, but like coming from a really strong mental place that like I am trying my best and therefore I am good enough. Like, dude, when I see you making progress, it's like, first of all, from a friend perspective, I couldn't be more happy. It's like, hell yeah, man. But then it's like, from a selfish perspective, it's like, I want you to keep on doing that, because then that forces me to up my game, and that's how a tribe and a team should be. Like, I don't understand the other way. The other way is just fool's gold. Oh, I don't want to congratulate Matt, or I want to congratulate him in a way that's half-assed, or even worse. Some people will start to give skewed advice to those people who are making progress. Like, oh man, like that's great, but like, you know, just be careful. You don't want to start worshiping money, Matt.
Yeah,
be careful. It's like, where is that coming from? Is that biblical, or is that like you just trying to keep Matt down so you feel good about yourself?
Yeah, no, that's actually really true, of just being like, or just someone pouring their insecurity about the situation. Like it got me when I was younger. Someone, when I wanted to go to school for psychology, was like, dude, you'll go nuts if you do that stuff. That stuff will drive you crazy. And I was like, you know, I was young enough. I was like, what the fuck does this guy know that I don't? And I was like, well, maybe I won't do that. That was like a serious factor of me not doing that. But yeah, man, I mean, I remember being like, I don't want to go crazy. But it just, there's something to be said for knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it, and being like, yeah, the reason why I'm doing it is satisfactory. And then like you start to come across all of this input, and you're like, you start to question, like, how sound is this person in what they're doing? And, you know, you have to try to figure that out for yourself. And it's the scary thing is, when you get down to it, you realize that, and again, I'm not being like a dick or being judgmental, but the majority of people have no idea what they're doing or what they're up to. And it's like, not in a jerkish way. And I've spent the majority of my life like that, so I think I can kind of pick it out pretty easily. And I'm not like perfectly concrete in everything I do and think, but it's improved drastically. And it just like, there's a whole universe of thinking and worrying that just kind of falls away. Because it's like, cool. You know, you can be sitting at a party with someone who's like super famous. You're like, that's cool. You know, that must be the cool thing to do. And then you're like, all right, what am I up to? And you're like, oh, I actually like that. But when you don't like what you're up to, it's just the next best thing becomes like, fuck that guy. Because it's like, because people paint their situation as hopeless, and it's like, it's not. Yeah.
Well, and final thing, Matt, because I know you got to run.
Oh, yeah.
So for Troy, he said, I don't know, it seems like most of the guys he hung out with in his life offered advice not based off of their own misguided path. So I think I'm reading that correctly. I think where it helps of decision making, I think decisions should be made based off of its own merit, like the natural ingredients of the decision. What would be the likely cause and effect, and is that cause and effect, does it result in the result that you would like? getting other people's advice, I think, should be that as well. Help me look at this decision based off of its own merit, not off of your own biases and what you think I can or cannot do. That is where I think advice really helps, like getting a team to help you make that call.
Yeah, and also, too, it's like it might seem extreme, but it's like I always think about, whenever I think about these kind of things and like social relationships, I always think about Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung when like they were like best boys. Sigmund Freud was like the hot dog in the, you know, in the psychology circles. And at one point they had to like break up as like colleagues, where Jung had to be like, my belief system is just way different than yours, man. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go do my own thing. And if he had been like, well, I don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, there was like a whole terrain of psychology that would have been unearthed. So it's like, yeah, man, it's like, you know, you think about that and it's like, that must have been really uncomfortable, but really necessary. So I always try to, because I'll get like caught up in these daily things too of just like, well, would that be weird? And it's like, hey man, imagine what you're, you know, blocking yourself from by not kind of, you know, setting your own personal boundaries or sharing, being like, dude, this is weird that you're doing this. Like, stop.
Yeah. So I think for like Troy, he's saying it's like it tends to be his friends commenting about like, it's like career making or money making stuff. That's where, Troy, I would say, hey, if you can get a group of friends, and by the way, Troy, if you ever want to chat with me, 100%, you're always welcome to. Just shoot me a message. But it's like, if I were in your corner, I would say, hey, man, this is how I've made money in my career. But looking at your skill set, here's what comes up for me. Like, based off of, again, its own merit on the natural ingredients, here's what my best guess would be. It might not have been the path that I took. But if you're an artist, I wouldn't tell you to become an investment manager, right? Like, That's a clear distinction. And Troy, maybe it's just an element of your friends might not just be old enough, right? Like, you know, they might not have that perspective. But I think that's often what you would need in that sort of domain.
For sure. Figuring out what you're genuinely interested in, right? I fucked myself in school like that, where I was genuinely interested in like a subset of things like psychology and all this stuff. And I just picked business, and it was like, it was fun and all, but in my head, I always was like, that was such a dumb mistake. And it was because I was like, it was just my own thinking, like, I'm going to make $100,000 a year now. It's like, yeah. And that was it. That was my whole thinking. And it's like, if I talked to any of my friends at the time, they'd be like, yeah, dude, hell yeah. I'm like, nice. I knew I was right. And it's like, yeah.
I knew I was right.
I agree.
Yeah.
But dude,
we are at 9 a.m. on my side, which is right on the button of you got to go, bro. I appreciate all of you guys being understanding. This is why I'm so happy it's a men's group and not a not men's group. You guys embrace the late because of my antics. So love you guys, appreciate it, and thanks for the support.
All right, man. We'll see you guys Monday.
All right, dudes.
Later on.